Hello and welcome to Excel functions and formulas. In this lecture, we'll be seeing about functions, Excel functions. So when you talk about Excel functions, it is nothing but it is a way to do an operation, okay, or can say to perform operation in Excel, right? So the functions is also known as formulas, right? So when we talk about formula, it is also called as functions, or function is also called as formulas. From the beginner's point of view, we should know the Excel function there are various functions which is available in Excel. So let us see what are the various functions which is available in Excel. One is your financial functions. One is your logical functions. Then you have the text functions. You have date and time functions. Then you have lookup and reference. Then you have mathematical and trigonometric functions. Then you have the database functions. Then you have the user defined functions. So whenever you want to work in Excel with the help of functions, first thing is that you have to work with the formulas. So the simple syntax for formula is nothing but first thing is that you have to type equal to, then you have to type the formula or the formula name, then you have to just open a bracket, then there will be some arguments. This is the typical syntax for using a function. So it begins with the equal sign, then your formula name, then arguments. Suppose I take an example of an if function. Equal to if, then there will be arguments, argument 1, argument 2, and argument 3. Right? So these are the typical syntax for your if function. So when we go for the if function, the argument 1 will be your logical test, right? And the argument 2 will be the result of the logical test. The logical test result could be what? Could be true or it could be false. It could be true or it could be false. If it is true, it will invoke argument 2. So argument 2 could be, it is some operations, whether we want to perform some operation, whether any text that has to be displayed, or any arithmetical operations we have to perform, or any text that has to be displayed. So these are the two simple things that we have to see. And when we talk about argument 3, it invokes when the false has been triggered. When the logical test is false, argument 3 will be triggered. So in this same way, in the argument 3, you can do some arithmetical operations when the logical test is false, or you can do some text, printing your text. So this is a typical part of your if functions. So I can say in summary, if will be having a syntax something, but if logical test value, if true, then value if false, value if true, and value if false. So these are the arguments of if functions. These are the arguments, argument 1, argument 2, and argument 3. So these are the arguments of your if functions. So we can do in the value, that is in the second argument, we can do an operation, arithmetical operation, or text-based printing your text. Now, and this we will be starting with the logical functions. So we'll be covering up if function, then we will be covering up your ifs, logical ifs, then we'll be covering up or, then we'll be covering up and function, then we'll be covering up sum if, then sum ifs functions, then we'll be covering up count if and count if functions, count ifs. So these are the standard logical functions that we will be referring. And if time persists, we will be combining the if function with or function and combining the if function with and functions. So then the process of working in Excel becomes more interesting when you combine this function, one function to another functions. So we can do with the nested functions also. So we'll be working on the nested functions. So nested function is the thing, but within the function, one more function. Suppose we have the logical test over here. The syntax equal to if logical test value of true and value of false, we can just add one more function within this. Maybe one more if functions. So we'll be working on nested functions and we'll be working on the multiple if functions. Multiple if functions. So in next lecture, we'll be working on the Excel.